Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review We Are the Wave. So, this is a German show that is dubbed over in English. And so, really, there have been a couple iterations of this review before it got to now here, which I'm just trying to save a little bit of time and just go out and try to review these episodes via episode to episode to episode. And knowing full well that I'm like, oh, okay, well, I think in the next week or so, like I can be able to eventually get these out fairly easier if I were to just comb through the entire season and then try to review this entire season again in this iteration. Because before, like, I had to, like, I posted this and then I had to repost the video. Now I'm doing it in a completely new and different way of doing things because immediately every time I saw it, I was like, like, yeah, I think, like, if I'm gonna talk about the show, I need to completely just redo this and do it in a much different way, than people are used to, like seeing show reviews from me, because I'm trying to change how I'm doing show reviews now. Like, instead of just having one picture and using that through an entire season of something, like I'm really trying to make every picture of a review count. I'm trying to make every thing look um, and remind people of an episode rather than just the same picture used 18 times with different lettering on it. It just kind of just it doesn't look unique enough. So, with that said, here is We Are the Wave. So, if you've never heard of this show in your life, uh, this is a pretty interesting show. Really vastly different than a lot of other shows. We end up having that is to head into a point of anarchy, is to head into, or not anarchy, maybe anarchists that are kind of fighting against the corporate machine, and to have them remember who the little man is, or the little man can be, because the little man could be a woman or whichever, but uh, like especially in this episode, uh, we have the group who is just kind of forming, like they're finding themselves. Eventually, we have like-minded people who are all kind of getting to know one another. It seems that Tristan automatically, you can already tell that this person is going to become the leader of We Are the Wave, because Tristan is very much uh, like not afraid of how people are going to see him, or he's kind of very out there compared to everyone else that kind of feel like they have to be um, very much like hidden or an outcast or whatever, and like they shouldn't say something, or that they should just be fine with the way their life is, but they eventually want to break out of what their life is, because or you have a guy like Hagen who is to uh, go and want to speak up to the corporate machine, because he is to have his family lose his farm. So, like, we have a lot of developing things going on with this group, showcasing where they all are, and then eventually we'll get into what the meat and potatoes of this show eventually is. We get a little snidbit in the very beginning of here, which doesn't actually tie into the rest of the show. It's kind of like this is where the show is going to lead up to, but before that happens, we are going to like show you the very beginning of how they got there, um, and how really they felt that they had no choice but to become these people, to become We Are the Wave. Uh, Really, I'm not here to be on the side of a protester or a person that uh, does not like protesting or whichever. Like, I'm just here to review a show. Hopefully everybody understands that. But yeah, I actually really enjoy this show, like, via what it is to, like, it has a very interesting cast. We have a guy like Tristan who is to seemingly be a very, like, standoutish guy at school. He is, of course, the new kid in the school because there is a whole reason for that. We end up finding out that this kid actually is to be on a day pass from, I guess, a juvenile delinquent prison. And so Tristan is to get some kind of day pass, which basically means he can get out of prison to go to school and be also just going about his day up until a certain time, to where he has to report back to this juvenile prison for him to do whatever the rest of his sentence is. Because I guess he's technically like getting out, because I guess the juvenile delinquent school is just, or the juvenile delinquent prison is just crowded. And so this kid is to get out because of his maybe prison sentence is a little bit of a weaker charge than some other people. So we also find really, if Tristan is also the most interesting character, we also have to focus on a girl named Louise. And Louise is, I guess, I would probably say that she is a fairly popular girl. Like, immediately when she used to wake up, she used to have a million different notifications on a million different apps, and she has to kind of like scroll through it to see what all her friends are doing. And like, they're inviting her for parties, she's seeing photos of all kinds of her friends' activities. And so we eventually start to see with Louise how it seems that she is probably going through the motions of her life, because like everything is seemingly working out well for her. She's getting the right guy, she's getting the right school, she's getting the right friends, and we kind of start to have Louise actually realize that really she is just kind of going through the motions, and really she's doing everything that she's doing with her life because it's safe. And plus, Tristan is to open Luis's eyes to just say, like, you know what, like I think that you could be like so much more than what you're being. Like, I think that like you need to like realize like what life really is and what is really valuable. And plus also Louis or Lay, I'm sorry, I said Louise, it's Lay, Lea, Lay. So Lay is to consistently see that her life is more than notifications, and life is more than just going to parties and having fun. Life needs to have more meaning. And eventually, when Tristan is to hand Lay a book to realize really what her meaning of her life is, it gets interesting. So, now that I've gone and talked about this show, let's go out of our way to go into spoilers about it. So yeah, like, really this show is about anarchy, or anarchists who are trying to protest for a morally right reason, to go up against corporations who are polluting, or who are pocketing money, or whichever reasons, justifiable or whatever. And so let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this show. So in the very beginning of this, we are to have us showcase Lei. So Lei is to wake up to go to school, and immediately we see a huge amount of notifications, friends, partying, whichever. So we have Lei who is to wake up to go to school, and it seems that her life is just absolutely perfect. We eventually find somewhere in this episode that she is to have a boyfriend that she is to kiss, and to thank her for helping her with tennis practice, because we find Lei is doing tennis practice, but we immediately see Lei almost kind of starting to get disinterested in tennis practice. It just feels like Lei is really just kind of going through the motions. So we have Lei who is to eventually go to school to eventually meet the new kid Tristan. So Tristan is to sit down in this school, and so this teacher is to mention about some historical event, and we immediately have Tristan who is to mention F France, like FUCK France. And so we have the teacher who's like, what? And so we have Tristan who is to mention that that was the battle cry that was used in this historical event. And so this teacher is like, well, that is actually correct. It's like, well, since you know so much about this event, how about you go ahead and write a paper about it? And so we have Tristan who just kind of just easily writes this report and then just gives it to the teacher, and he's like, I'm just gonna go and I'm just gonna sit around because I'm done. I'm done with school. I'm just so smart and so easily just gonna just just make it through this school that I don't need. I know so much stuff already about everything. So we have eventually Lei who is to talk to Tristan, and Tristan is like, you know what, since I'm new around here, could you show me around to some to some parts of the school? So we have Lei and Tristan who immediately go to the library, and so Tristan is to kind of scroll through and look through some books, and he immediately gives one book uh, to Lei that is a book about logos and how they don't really make a difference and whatever. So we have Tristan who is giving uh, this girl a book on logos, and so she puts it back, but Tristan eventually takes the book so that way he can figure out a way to give it back to her, so that way she'll read it, because Tristan is figuring out how to open this girl's book up, which is basically meaning her. So we have Tristan who's eventually going to this theater department, and he is to eventually go and play on a piano. Lei is telling him not to because she doesn't want to get in trouble. So we have Tristan who is going on to get into the back of this theater and to go up into the roof of this school. And Lei is like, we can't be in here. We can't. And so Tristan is like, you know what? I want to take you to a place that you would never go. I want to have you come with me and just explore. So we have Tristan and Lei going to this this part of the school, and so they are to just have Tristan and Lei. Tristan is to mention how have you ever thought of a time where you're kind of just watching something and everything else is just put on mute? And Lei is like, what are you talking about? And Tristan is like, you know what I'm talking about. You'll know. You'll know. So if anything, we have Tristan and we have Lei, we have Zazie and we have Hagen, and I think Rahim that are all to go to a school trip. We have Tristan who is to meet Rahim in the into the bathroom, and so we have Tristan who follows Rahim into the bathroom, and so Tristan starts talking to Rahim, and Rahim is like, "Dude, you're only talking to me because you think I'm a drug dealer." And Tristan is like, "No, like I'm wanting to talk to you because you speak Arabic." And Rahim is like, "Oh my God, you speak Arabic too?" And we have Tristan who's like, "Yeah, and I guess you're from this part of this location." And Rahim is like, "Yeah, like you nailed it exactly." It's like, "How did you know?" It's like, "Because of your dialect, the way that you're talking in Arabic." So we have Rahim who's excited because Tristan is the only one that seems to speak Arabic, and so Tristan explains to Rahim, it's like, "Well, hey, like I didn't think that you were like a drug dealer just because like also like you wouldn't expect all Germans to be Nazis." Like, and so we have these two connecting and hitting it off, and so we eventually have some other person getting out of the bathroom, and Rahim is mentioning to Tristan, it's like, "Well, yeah, I guess anybody who is to speak in Arabic, like I guess somebody are to have their Johnsons shrivel up and walk out of the bathroom because they're scared." So we also have Rahim who is consistently to be uh, kind of humiliated by this group of kids. But also, we have Tristan, who is also humiliated by these kids as well. But Rahim, like, at some points, is getting like being run over by a car almost by this group of kids because they don't like Rahim. But that happens later. So we have Tristan who is to be confronted by these group of kids, and they are to just make fun of him because of the shirt that he has on. And so immediately these kids hate this kid just because of a shirt that he has on. And so Tristan is to immediately go up to one of the guys that was making fun of him and kiss him on the lips. And everybody's like, "Whoa, like, whoa, is Tristan, like, is he, like, like, is he batting for whatever team?" And Tristan's like, like, Tristan is just like, "Well, hey, like, I get that you're still in the closet and you don't want to tell everybody yet, but, like, you know what, like we don't have to exactly put labels on everything and all kind, and like, and everybody's just kind of blown away. Like, Lay ended up seeing Tristan just kind of kiss this guy and kind of walk away, and Lay is like, "Wow, this kid is really getting under everyone's skin and really just impressing a lot of people and really just kind of like standing out a lot." So we are to go on to this field trip, and so we have Tristan who is to sit next to Zazie, and so we have uh, Tristan who is to hear a girl in the back of the bus uh, kind of put down both Zazie and Tristan. And so Tristan immediately goes like, "You know why that you're giving people so much crap? It's because you're ugly." It's like, if anything, like, the reason why you want to hurt people is because you're ugly. So like, it's like along those words. Like, I'm not saying the exact line for line, but you get my drift. So we have Tristan who turns to Zazie, and so he's like, "Why don't you like speak up for yourself? Like, if anything, like to like really have a comeback for that person kind of like takes away their power. And Zazie is like, well, yeah, but like that girl is so popular, and I don't know what to say. And so we go on to eventually go on to this field trip, and so we eventually have these people going through this. I think it's like a factory of sorts. That it's I think it's like a paper factory, but I'm not 100% sure. So uh, oh my god, I didn't even get to the very beginning of this show. I kind of scooted past that. We'll talk about the beginning of the show at the very end because it doesn't exactly matter. So I'm kind of tailoring the episode of how I want it to be told. So we'll get there. So, and plus, I just don't want to like put a pin into a scene that doesn't matter where you place it. Like it just matters that you eventually talk about it. So hopefully I'll remember and get to it. So we have Tristan who is to go on and be on this field trip. And so we eventually have somebody talking about his factory. And so we have Hagen who is to start talking to one of the factory members who was giving this tour. And so we have Hagen who's like, how do you sleep at night? And this factory worker is like, wait, excuse me, what? Like, I can't quite hear what you're saying. Like, if anything, if you actually want an internship here, you'll learn that you'll actually have to speak a lot louder for anyone to hear you. So, we have Hagen who is to mention that his family has lost everything because this company has polluted their land, and that his parents have lost everything. And how could they sleep at night knowing that they have done that to people? And so we have Hagen who is to grab something out of his coat almost, but Tristan is to stop him. And Tristan is to mention that this guy, every bit of all that he cares about is how to eventually see his wallet expand and to try to get more money. That's all that this company cares about, is how can they get more money. So we are to have this teacher eventually go and take both Tristan and Hager because they're causing a ruckus. They're causing like a problem with this tour, and so this teacher is to tear both Hagen and Tristan away to have them eventually, after this field trip is over, go to the principal's office. So we have Tristan and we have Hagen who are at waiting to get into the principal's office. And so we have Tristan who is to mention, or Hagen is to mention this whole backstory about his family losing everything, and that Hagen's parents had tried to fight this company off with lawyers, but they're still trying to desperately come up with the fees for trying to go after this company through the courts. And so we have Tristan who's like, yeah, man, like I'm like same thing, like I feel like exactly the same as you. And so we have Tristan and Hagen who are to go into the principal's office, and the principal is like, oh, you rascally kids, you. But there isn't any actual things that they could do to these kids, like, especially because, like, all you can do is just scold them. So, Tristan and Hagen are to go and walk out, and so Tristan is like, you know what? Like, hey, Hagen, like you should get like an A for effort and that whole thing, like how you like spoke your mind and everything. So we are to eventually have Zazie who is to go and talk to Hagen and say, oh, hey, bye, Hagen, and Hagen is to say bye, Zazie, and so we have Tristan who's like, hey, like, you and that Zazie girl, are you kind of like you together? And Hagen's like, no, I think like I like her and she likes me, but there was never anything that could kind of like connect us together, kind of thing. So we're gonna work on that eventually. So we have eventually now Raheem who joins with Hagen and Tristan, and so we have Lay who is to mention it's like, hey, good on you, and like thanks for you for speaking up, and so Tristan assumes that it's like, oh yeah, you're welcome, and so Lay was like, no, like I'm not talking to you, Tristan, I was talking to Hagen, and then Hagen was like, oh thanks, and so they end up Raheem, Tristan, and Hagen all walk off to eventually bump back into these school bullies that are racist and are just against anybody and whatever. And so we eventually have these group of guys that are all uh, going, and I think one of the characters' names is Lass or Loss. Like the very Lasse. If that's Lass, it seems like it would probably be Lass. But he is like the very bright red-headed kid. So that is one of the kids in this group, and so we have these kids all driving and almost hitting Raheem, and so Raheem mentions how this is a consistent thing, how they almost run him over numerous times a day. And so they eventually see this car eventually go on to park somewhere. And so we have Tristan who has decided, you know what, like, we're not going to take it from these kids anymore. And so we have Tristan, Hagen, and Raheem all going and just starting to jump on this car and like start to break some of the windshields and glass and stuff like that of this car, really damage this car pretty good. And like they're pulling the whole like mystery man like Ben Stiller movie like with the villain to where they're just gonna ruin this person's car and then run away. So they end up ruining their car, this person's car, and then eventually running off and running away. So we are to see Lei eventually going to tennis practice, and she is to go and look at like kind of notifications of her phone, and her boyfriend that is actually also her coach is saying like, hey, practice isn't over. And so Lei is just kind of like looking at what's going on. So we have Lei who is to kiss her boyfriend and tells him like, thanks for helping me out in practice, like thanks helping me out to be trained. So we are to find Tristan is going to a prison like part time to kind of just have it be like a halfway house kind of deal to where he can kind of like he can go and have like a thing to do during a portion of the day, but he eventually needs to go home to this prison. So it's kind of like a halfway house. It's kind of like probation for Tristan. And so nobody in the school knows this yet, uh, but eventually they'll find out somewhere down the road. Uh, but anyways, so let's. I think I did cover almost everything in this episode, but the very beginning. So we'll get to that now. So we are to see in X amount of time that passes towards this show, or towards this like this is future We Are the Wave point time now. So we are to see that both Lei and Tristan are to be different people disguised as someone else, and they are at this mayor rally. So this mayor is going on about how he sees kids that are getting this like corrupted information, that he is seeing that there are certain kids who are getting the right kinds of, or getting the wrong kinds of knowledge. And so we have Tristan and we have Lei, who is to put some kind of drug into this guy's water. Like, Lei is to poke a needle through this bottled water and put this drug inside of it. And so we have this mayor who is to not have a bottled water with him. And so Lei is to be a waitress to bring up this bottled water. And there are people that stop this girl. And so we have this mayor kind of ushering her over, so that way, like he's felt a little parched, so he's going to go and get some water from her. So we have this mayor who is drinking this thing of water, and then all of a sudden he is to kind of stumble on his words, kind of get a lot of things confused, and then all of a sudden he is to mention like something that doesn't seem kind of connecting to what he had said previously, where he's mentioning that everything is just gonna, like, I think, turn into some kind of war. And then he's like, excuse me folks, like, I am just like, I need to go and go off and just collect my thoughts for a second. So we have somebody going back onto the podium, and so this mayor, or to-be mayor, is going and going down these steps to kind of get a breath of fresh air, but that is just to end up having him be greeted by the Wave. And they are to put all on their costumes, and so the mayor is to fall over, and so we have every single one of the members of the Wave going and hovering over the mayor, and the mayor is asking them, well, what do you want? And so we end up stopping there to eventually go back to the beginning. But Lei in the very beginning was doing this monologue telling people that she and others felt that they had no choice but to become this Wave. That eventually there had to be wrongs righted and everything like that. And so really, yeah, like, so with that said, I think that's all I wanted to say about this review. Kind of weird just doing an episode of this, but, and I plus also hope that I kind of covered a lot of this episode, because really I think there might have been a thing here or there. Like, I don't say the exact lines of movies and shows, and plus it's also very difficult when you have a lot in one day to review, because I'm kind of covering 5 different things to review today, so it might all get like grinded into the blender of me just kind of like, okay, like I'm remembering this episode, but I'm also remembering like this 2-hour film, or this hour and a half movie, and this other episode of a show, or so it just gets mixed in the blender, and that's what just happens at the tail end of this. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this review of We Are the Wave. I'm going to get out of here because I know that this episode was 40 minutes and I talked for 34. So I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.